they got incarcerated, this guy, um, Matias Reyes, he came forward and said that he was the one who raped the girl and not them. And it had DNA evidence that said that he did it and the others weren't a part of that.
So basically, Matias Reyes came forward. He was the initial rapist, who basically violated the jogger. And he came forward and he basically, came through with a confession saying that he was the one that did it and the others didn't. Now, you have Linda Fairstein, who she was one of the main leads behind the case. She, to this day, still alleges and says that he basically took the blame for the others, but the others were involved in the situation. But based on the details of the overall scenario, by the time that the jogger was being abducted or being violated by Matias Reyes, the other joggers were a pretty good distance. The other joggers, the Central Park Five, were a pretty good distance away from the general area that they was located in Central Park, because Central Park is a huge park. You could both be at the park at the same time, but if you're in different locations, you know what I'm saying, you could be talking about 20, 30 minutes away from each other, you know what I'm saying? And so, at the end, a lot of the evidence just didn't line up. Obviously, you had the coercion of, children, because that's what they were. They were children. They like, yeah, they were teenagers, but in reality, you're still a child. Like, and the majority of them were still in their early teens, so they just became teenagers. They were like 14, you know what I'm saying? Like you barely a teenager, you know what I'm saying? And so they treated these children as though they were grown men, because at that time, like, because it happened again. It happened to a white woman, and it happened by Central Park, where you would think is like the safest area. And again, this kind of goes back to our conversation around gentrification yesterday, where it's like, something like this was a tremendous outrage because it happened to a white woman who, she had a good career, and this happened around Central Park, where I believe she was located around there. I'm not too sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, it happened in an area that was already being gentrified anyways. You know what I'm saying? And so this created, an uproar. And of course, when a certain demographic of people speak out, the government or officials are quicker to respond to that, as opposed to if it was somebody from the community of color. You know what I'm saying? Like, police brutality has been happening for years, and nobody really talks about it. Like, and the fact, the only reason the media is really getting on this and really like riding this, because like what we were talking about, what I'm saying, this idea of being a liberal white person. Yeah, you're liberal, but up to what point? You know what I'm saying? And for what agenda? Obviously, if you being a reporter and you're a white reporter, which most reporters are, you're gonna ride this wave. You're gonna ride this wave all the way to the end. You know what I'm saying? Because this is, people are gonna want to read anything and everything about police brutality and stuff like that. So you're gonna be publicizing about Black Lives Matter and this and that. And it's just one of those things. So, my bad. Could you put your video on mute? We're hearing like background sound effects and stuff like that. So, all right, thank you. So basically, you're talking about when a certain community comes up and has a complaint, or they start talking about, oh, this has to be done, this and that, the demands are heard even more. And gun violence in the Black and brown community have existed for a long time. You know what I'm saying? Like, they call it black on black crime, but they never talk about white on white crime. You know what I'm saying? Which it happens at about the same rate in most areas, because it's like, again, where there's poverty, there's going to be crime and stuff like that. But gun violence, it definitely is an issue in urban communities inside of the hood or whatever, because it's like, everybody's just trying to survive, or some people might have a ratchet just to try to defend themselves, or what I'm saying, maybe you part of a gang initiation and they're telling you to go hit that op over there or whatever. So it's like, you know, it's always been an issue in the community. And you rarely hear about policies or anything being formed to basically protect these communities of color. But if there's a mass shooting in the school like Newtown, or somewhere where it's like predominantly suburban community, what I'm saying, that's when you start getting the NRA involved, and what I'm saying, you start uh, shaping policy to limiting certain types of guns from getting into certain communities. On top of all that, you're talking about the guns and the drugs that exist in these communities that oftentimes are used in robberies, or whatever. Like, who brought them in? You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, these guns didn't just grow out the dirt. You know what I'm saying? They didn't just fall out the sky. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, how do I put it? It's like when we talked about the dope game. Like, cocaine doesn't grow over here. You know what I'm saying? Opium, it doesn't grow over here. It had to be brought from outside. You know what I'm saying? And certain people have to be willing to and stuff like that. The CIA, way back in the day, knew about the drug trade. They knew about Nicaragua bringing drugs over here to the United States. Along with doing that, they also brought paramilitary weapons. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why you got dudes in the hood who got AK-47s and Uzis and things like that, things that you would use in the military, because that's the only people you could get it from soldiers. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, like, if you go to certain gun stores and stuff like that, you could get them, but in certain states, it's very difficult for you to get a gun. Like certain states, like New York, California, New Jersey, it's very difficult for you to get access to a gun legally. All right, you have to have connections. You have to be part of the law enforcement community to whatever extent. So with all that being said, the demands of people living in a certain area, they're heard generally much more than, from communities of color.
Professor, I would like to add here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you good.
Yeah, I would like to add here the book called The New Jim Crow. If you read the book by Michelle Alexandra, I think. And she wrote in her book that how all that drugs was bringing from the outside of the country and distributed into the poor neighborhoods. It's just really interesting book. I don't know. I suggest all my classmates to read that book.
Most definitely.
The New Jim Crow.
Could you type that in the chat real quick?
Yes, no problem.
Have that information, and that's actually where I'm quoting from that book specifically, The New Jim Crow, by Michelle Alexander, because she worked for the ACLU for a good minute, basically doing research on crime and statistics and things like that. And the CIA came out with this public statement. You know what I'm saying? It's not under a rock. You know what I'm saying? You just gotta go look for this and do the research. But at the end, they openly came out and they talked about this. The same way that if you watch the documentary 13 on Netflix, it gives you a lot of context and information, like Ronald Reagan's his advisor was saying that the war on drugs, it wasn't a war on drugs, it was a war on black people, what I'm saying, directly. And he said, did we know that we were criminalizing these people and basically putting them back in essentially slavery? Like, he said, yeah, basically, you know what I'm saying? And so ultimately, all of what we've spoken about throughout the semester, throughout our classes and stuff like that, it's leading up to, for example, this case about the Central Park Five, because that's also why I brought up gentrification, because a crime like this includes gentrification. If let's say if the Central Park Five, joggers case, instead of a white woman, it was a black woman, you know what I'm saying? And this was like, and it happened in the BX or something, like it was a girl from the Bronx, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's say it didn't happen in Central Park. Let's say it happened in Brooklyn, the BX, some some area where it's like, nah, that's the trenches, that's the hood, this and that. Like, it wouldn't have gotten that much attention. It would have not gotten that much attention, but because it happened in Central Park and because it happened to a white woman specifically, it got a lot of attention. Obviously, any case like this should be given attention to because it's not something to be taken lightly, especially rape and what they did to her specifically. But at the end of the day, reality is reality, and we know it it wouldn't it wouldn't be resolved if it happened in the hood. That's why I don't know if anybody listens to Tupac. He has this song called "Brenda Had a Baby," and basically he's talking about a case where like Brenda, like it's based on a true story where Brenda was a girl. She was being raped by her own family member. She ended up having a kid by her family member, and she resorted to prostitution and stuff like that to basically try and saying get by in life because she didn't have the support of parents. That long story short, she ended up getting killed. You know what I'm saying? And I think in the process of it, I think she took her baby and she left it in the dumpster as well. You know what I'm saying? So like that was a case where so many things happened to this one girl, and she was a teenager when all of this happened to her. And at the end of the day, they like the only reason we even know about it is because Tupac got on the track and rapped about it. You know what I'm saying? And that kind of says a lot right there. I'm gonna put it's like early Tupac, not Illuminati Tupac. I mean, Tupac is Tupac. All right, who's our discussion leader for today?
Me.
Hey,
Well,
so what's good?
I
You
don't
got the goods for us?
Well,
Huh?
I don't know because I feel like you really said everything but I put some questions on the discussion. I said, where are they?
Let's start off with based in the chat, and then we'll answer that. Let me see something.
I put simple questions, so didn't want to, I said, what happened to
Can you
these
read
guys?
the first question for us?
Anybody?
What happened to the Central Park Five?
Yeah, like what happened to them? I know, but I'm just saying, like, I thought the class was supposed to answer. So, well, I put the questions late too because I was just too focused on all things. So
I think one of them became a doctor, and the other ones are like activists, but they're still fighting for they're advocating for reform, prison reform, But I know one of them, which the thing that amazes me the most is that one of them became a doctor, and just to like hear him speak and know that he went through like all those years in prison, the way he kept it together and he still pursued a doctor's, it's just amazing.
Probably Joseph.
One of them dating a big booty video model.
Is it just me, or are you experiencing like delay with the Zoom video, like the audio?
Only when you talk. Yeah, it's
cracked up a little bit.
Okay, is it a little normal now or not?
It's breaking.
At any moment, is it a little clearer now?
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Is it a little clearer now?
Sort of. Yeah.
You breaking, but I can hear you.
This is like one of the issues with using technology is like once certain things start happening, it's like there's only so much you can do. I actually did hit up what's it called, BMCC, and like the IT team to see like what we could do to like improve the quality, but it's like they're like, yo, it kind of is what it is,
5G.
You didn't even waste your time. They don't do shit. Sorry, guys. It's too early to curse, but they don't do shit.
Yeah, they don't. I told them about
you said it, not me.
And they don't. Yeah, I told them about my BMCC email not working, and they haven't responded since like
Can you believe I haven't applied for my classes for the fall coming up to John Jay because they still have problems with the email, and I've been emailing them, and I got a response,
resolved.
and that's
I
it.
think you gotta
And
call
then I
them.
emailed again, haven't
You done mine a couple of days ago. The matter is resolved. So call them.
Yeah, I was trying to call them today.
There's a phone number of the IT desk. You call them and give them your situation. They will be able to help you right away. I just got mine day before yesterday.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna call them.
Yeah, and question, or what's your name? I could bring it to the chat.
Ada, me?
Yeah, because I think we can help each other to sign up the classes. Okay. Is that okay?
No problem.
Because I'm pretty confused. Yeah.
Okay.
You got it. Thanks.
I mean, the key in life is follow up. You know what I'm saying? Like, the main thing is showing up, but then you gotta follow up. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it shouldn't be like that, but unfortunately, that's how it is. But let me tell you, when you learn how to do that early on in life, you know, here in college, you're gonna know how to do it in the work field. Because let me tell you, the work field is not gonna be any different. Like, people talk about, oh, these are professionals and this and that. The only thing pro is that, I don't know, like, the only thing profess in there is that they maybe had a professor at one point. I don't know. I don't really see the level of professionalism in a lot of fields that they claim to have. You know what I'm saying? But not to say everybody's like that, but a lot of people in all fields just, you know, they drop the ball because they're just human, I guess, you know, but it's not an excuse at the end of the day. So just follow up with them. If you're still experiencing issues, then just let me know so I can send the follow-up email as well, okay?
Okay. I will call today. Thank you.
For sure. So you said what happened to the guys. Okay, so basically some of them went on to be activists. One of them became a doctor. So what Mel was saying, it is impressive when you experience incarceration. You were wrongfully convicted all this time, and then you basically have the mental fortitude to say, I'm not going to let this define me. I'm not going to let this keep me down. Because the thing is, once you end up in, like, people don't want to hire you. They, you know, it's basically guilty until proven innocent. It's not innocent until proven guilty. You know what I'm saying? And so, especially if you're a person of color, it's like they're definitely gonna stereotype you and, you know, put you on your ass basically. But obviously, like, you know, they can come through with the paperwork. They end up getting the settlement only in 2014, which that's a long time because this happened in the 90s. You know what I'm saying? Basically, that at least gave them kind of a new start. Like, you can't make up that time anyways, but, you know, at the very least, they didn't come back out into society, but unfortunately they did lose their childhood, they did lose their teenage years and stuff like that. But in a way, they kind of became martyrs for the cause because it's like their situation brought so much awareness. And right now, as we speak, like, they're doing advocacy work, and, like, you know, the awareness that they've been able to bring and that they've been able to push forward has just, it changed a lot of things, you know. The prosecutor who was involved in the case, they came out, all the black students at Columbia University, because Columbia is an Ivy League school. It's like one of the top schools in the world, okay? The black students from Columbia University, that especially when was taking her class, they told her, you gotta resign. They told her she gotta resign. We're not jacking it. You ain't gonna teach us no more. You know, saying that's it. And basically she, you know, talking about, you know, such and such resign. I forgot her name, but in regards to Linda Fairstein, who's the main person behind all this, she ended up losing her publishings with he put her on the map in regards to being an author. Yeah, she was working with the courts and things like that, things of that nature, but she was making bread off of books. Like, one of the fastest ways or best ways to gain a large amount of wealth is by releasing books and publishing books and stuff like that. And so obviously if your book becomes like a New York Times bestseller, which I think she had several of those, you're gonna be making bank, you know what I'm saying? And so she's been making mad bread off of gigs publishings, just drop it like that. And now she's just this year, I believe it was, she opened a lawsuit against Ava DuVernay, who's the director of the When They See Us documentary, because she said Ava DuVernay basically messed up her life, and that now she can't get any bookings. Her publishings got dropped. But, you know, this is another case of Karen being Karen body. you put somebody in one of the worst positions anybody could ever be in. You know what I'm saying? And they were children at that. Again, the oldest one out of the five was 16. You're still pretty much a kid. You know what I'm saying? And then basically, you know, she's out here crying wolf, you know, because now she lost the publishing. Like, in reality, she should be grateful she's not locked up right now, because what she did was tamper and destroy specific conviction. And so ultimately all of this ended up, you know, affecting people's livelihoods and, you know, perspectives and stuff like that. You know, still claim, you know, that they didn't coerce, or that they didn't force confessions out of these kids. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, those kids should have never been unsupervised. They were supposed to have their parents present with them. They went ahead and just interrogated these kids without parents. Some parents ended up, or some guardians ended up signing up, which ended up leading to their kids getting convicted and stuff like that. And, you know, it's just a foul situation all over, because I don't think that young people are in that list. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're just starting life as a teenager. You don't really grow into your identity or into your consciousness, like where you have like a firm sense or a more firm sense as to who you are, until when you get into your teen years. You know what I'm saying? But unfortunately, they got exposed to the system, and, you know, especially for what was the oldest one's name again? I forgot his
Corey
name.
Wise.
Yeah, especially for Corey Wise. You know, because New York, they can try 16-year-olds as adults. So he was tried as an adult, and Rikers Island is no joke. And Rikers Island in the 90s was even less of a joke. You know what I'm saying? Because Rikers Island is bad now, but it was way worse in the 90s, because you didn't have as many cameras, you didn't have as much policy around use of force. You know, correctional officers used to beat up the teenies all the time, you know, controlling the premises. And it makes sense if, you know, especially if you have like a problematic individual or whatever. If you're a correctional officer, and the commissioner and the wardens and other people above you are not really doing nothing to address the issues at the bottom, you know, I can understand why somebody would feel like they need to take it into their own hands. So, you know, that's how they would establish law and order. And then obviously you have a lot of detainees, or a lot of people who were locked up, who basically, you know what I'm saying, like they knew where the cameras was and wasn't, and, you know, worse stuff used to happen back then than currently. It's kind of hard to imagine, because it's not necessarily good now. If they didn't coerce confessions. So Corey, at 16, had to be in a facility with grown men who were me. And a lot of these guys, you know, who are in prison for years at a time, like they could just violate you at any moment, and it's like you can't really do much. You know what I'm saying? So it's a difficult transition. And the thing is, not only that, but prisons and jail, they have their own culture as well, right? If you go in there, you go in there. You know what I'm saying? Certain things are more respected than others. Like if you caught a body, people probably not gonna mess with you as much, or unless it was somebody else that caught a body, if you just trying to test a gangster or whatever. If you're a sex offender, that's the worst thing that you could have over your head, going into jail or going into prison. You know what I'm saying? Because that right there, like because again, it's a whole psychology to it. I could be locked up, I could be an inmate, or I could be a detainee or whatever, but I still have, you know, my code in general for humanity or whatever. There's still ways that you have to go about moving, even if you're doing criminal activity. You know what I'm saying? Like there's certain things that are off limits. Like back in the day, the children were off limits. Now the younger generation doesn't really have a code of ethics. Back then, it was like you children. That's for weaklings type stuff. You know what I'm saying? But if you're a sex offender and you go into Rikers Island, or you go into any facility in general, like you a green light. You know what I'm saying? You a green light, you will go. If somebody want to violate, it's going to be endorsed and it's going to be motivated. You know, like it's going to be encouraged, I should say. So, you know, these are things that people don't really understand as well and judge enough. But the thing that they got wrongfully convicted for, a lot of people get raped for in prison. A lot of people get sexually molested, get sexually abused, physically abused. As soon as people find out what your charge is or what you're paping, how easygoing or in general. You know what I'm saying? And those are things to take a second question. What did they get? Why did they get blamed? Why do y'all think
Because they were black.
Because of Donald Trump, he wanted the
death penalty. It was more because like that they were forced to say and that's the only evidence. And when one of the officers hit one of the, he said that, like, that extra stuff. So that was, yeah.
I don't know if you guys watched When They See Us, but there was no what they were talking about. On top of all that, they were like not up at all. So that just shows that whole time.
Yeah, class that like, well, first of all that really can't like promise stuff like that, especially a parent present or guardian. Yeah, all of the things when they see us, it's like, how they violate people's rights, and especially kids. So it's like, first of all, it's like a movie. So I don't know to what extent like.
Yeah, but some of the like parts were very like true.
Yeah.
With the confession, and then yeah.
For
Yeah,
sure.
because I had to write a paper on them for another class, and I was doing some other research beyond the innocent and all that, but they weren't, even though they were innocent of that crime, they used to like do other things. So the show portrayed them as these young into exactly that, but that's just what the article said.
I mean, all your answers is God because they were black or they were people of color. They needed a conviction. They basically was just, and so at the end, it became a thing where, it's kind of just a manhunt at this point. Like nobody should, but it ends up becoming one of those things where we just need to get a body. And with the criminal justice system was pretty much more concerned with convictions over being right necessarily. You know what I'm saying? We fulfill the bare minimum as opposed to actually making sure that the right person got caught so that it doesn't happen again. You know what I'm saying? And Matias Reyes, I'm not sure if it happened before or after that, but I think, like, I know he had more than one rape victim, but I'm not sure if the jogger was after the first one or before the first one.
I read something that said that he had done it before the jogger.
Wait, who,
so like before and after.
Oh, I heard that, like, I was reading about his childhood, and it turns out that his mother sold him for $400 to his father, and that he went through, like, all his life, he went through sexual assault, and then at 17, he basically lived in a van by himself. So I feel like, I'm not supporting anything, but I just feel like there's a lot about him, and it just kind of adds up, like, why he is the way he is.
Yeah, most definitely. It goes back to what we were talking about a couple of days ago in regards to psychology. I think it was yesterday. My memory is whack sometimes, but it was yesterday or the day before where we talked about psychology. It's not that you have to agree with what the person did, but when you understand certain aspects to that person, it helps you understand why certain things may have ended up happening the way that it did. And that's super valid what you just said right now, Angela, because at the end of the day, if he didn't experience that kind of upbringing, he probably wouldn't be the person that he ended up becoming. Not that you rationalize it, but go ahead.
A situation with oh my god, I forgot his name, but it was with this guy named Mohammed. It was with the shooting. Something about Lee Void. That's his name. Lee Void Malvo. Is that correct?
I'm not sure which case you're talking about.
Give me one.
Sure.
Yeah, Lee Void Malvo. It was this case, and basically, like, he was involved with this guy, but then if you were to learn about his background and how he was raised, you would see, like, why he committed the crimes he did. Plus, he was young. He needed a father figure. So it's kind of like, it's crazy, but it's understandable what they did.
Yeah, and that's the main thing, like understanding the background of some of these individuals, because some people just don't get a fair shake at life, to be honest. Like who, like you have to picture yourself in that situation. If you came up like that, like, I'm not saying any one specific person, but like in general, anybody in this class or in the world, if you came up in that specific kind of way, like, would you be any better? Would you be any worse? Like, it's like they say, it's always easy to play Monday morning quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Where the game already happened on Sunday. You already knew what happened in the plays that went down and stuff like that. So it's easier for me to say, oh, I would have did this in the second quarter, I would have did that in the third quarter. But you're like, it's not the same looking back at it as actually living it out in real time. You know what I'm saying? So like, a lot of people just, you know, we may have developed a certain level of common sense or understanding up to this point in life because now we understand things, and because maybe our upbringing really assisted us in understanding like that. But if what would happen if you took away that upbringing? What would happen if you took away the support systems that you had? Even if you didn't have the greatest support system, but even having some kind of support system is better than having no support system. Like, what would happen if you took that away? You know what I'm saying? And then we have to ask ourselves, damn son, like, I could have easily been that person or even worse, you know what I'm saying? And so it's valid what you said, you know, like upbringing, it plays a huge role in all of this. Obviously, you still have the ability to make choices, but it's more difficult for you to get ahead in life when your starting line at the racetrack is further back than everybody else's. You know what I'm saying? But at that point, you have to just run your own race. You know, you can't be out here trying to compete with somebody that's already 2 miles ahead of you. You know, this it's very difficult to try and catch up to that person. Like, you can maybe at some point, but you know, it's like this concept: life is a marathon; it's not a race. You know, in a marathon, you got to pace yourself, and you know, just because you're last at some point doesn't mean that that's where you're gonna end. It's not how you start; it's how you finish, type stuff. Um, and then the last question: did the police find any evidence? What's the answer to that?
They found evidence like the sperm on the sock, but they tested it and it didn't match any of the boys, but they tried to pin it on them anyway. But then when Matthias came out years later and they tested it, it matched him.
So on the specific 5 that were accused, there was no evidence to back up that they were actually the quote unquote perpetrators. You know, Linda Fairstein, in all her Karenness, uh, you know, wanted to continue to push this narrative and this agenda. And to this day, she still sticks to it, you know. Like, it would be more respectable for her to admit that she was wrong. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, she could make a comeback from that angle, you know, maybe put a spin on it. Like, she's an author. Like, she would know how to, you know, go through the thinking process and how to develop a certain thinking process to make a comeback. But at the end of the day, you know, it's human nature in a lot of cases to want to cover up your dirt. But it's like when it's so obvious like that, you're just hurting yourself even more. You know what I'm saying? Granted, I'm sure she's not going to be short of money anytime soon with all the books and all the stuff that she sold throughout the years. But at the end of the day, it obviously is it's a sickening situation to even consider. I don't know if anybody. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm aware of the series. I don't know if anybody's watched For Life. That's the series by 50 Cent.
I planned on watching it, but I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Oh, I haven't.
You've seen it?
No.
Gotcha. So that case is about a lawyer. His name is Isaac Wright, who basically, and he has an Instagram and all that if you want to follow him. But basically, he was wrongfully convicted. He was given, I think, 15 years plus life and 25 plus life for like some drug-related, you know, organizing crime and stuff like that. He was basically being framed for something he didn't do, and while he was locked up, he basically started studying law. He started taking on people's cases and defending, you know, people in court, and then he basically stood up and defended his own case. One of the lawyers that were involved in his case, trying to convict him, ended up committing suicide, you know, as a result of him, I guess, exonerating himself. And then he ended up still being denied access to, you know, to qualify to be a licensed practitioner in law because supposedly his conduct, this and that. But he ended up eventually becoming a licensed attorney, and now he does a lot of litigation and things like that. I don't know if, I mean, if you're from the Bronx, you probably know about this, but there's like there's like that it's like an underground league, but it's basically like the BX league, like where you like you box and there's like you're boxing on concrete and they put like barricades around you and like everybody's like in a circle. I forgot the name of it. I'm gonna see if I can find it right now. But y'all know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Street Fighter.
Yeah, it's basically street fighting, like legit actual street fighting. But it's like it's legitimate in the sense that it's organized. Like it's not like people are here just fighting just to fight. It's like if you got beef with somebody, you got somebody. Instead of y'all shooting each other and killing each other, let's come here. You know what I'm saying? Let's make money off of this and just squash them. Yeah, like they got this in the BX. I'm trying to see if I find this. It's called Rumble in the Bronx. It's called Rumble in the Bronx. So basically, like right now on IG, they have over 50,000 followers, and basically, literally on their bio it says NYC presents Rumble in the Bronx, an underground street fight club where you can settle beef with gloves instead of killing one another or going to jail. Like that's literally like their bio on Instagram. So at the end, like Isaac Wright got involved in getting paperwork for this league, so that way it's considered legitimate under what's like it's a like a dark organization clause, which is like it's not legit like on the level of like the NBA or MMA or anything like that, but it's legal where you can do it and the police aren't gonna come in and you know what I'm saying break everything up or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So he was involved in that, and that's how 50 Cent learned about Isaac Wright. And then now he ended up using Isaac Wright's life and using it loosely to focus on his new series For Life, which is basically about a man who's wrongfully convicted, and you know he ends up freeing himself and stuff like that. So at some point I'm gonna watch it, but I definitely suggest you know y'all get on it too, because anything with 50. So the Central Park 5 tragedy reframed Netflix series When They See Us. Basically, you're talking about a 4-part miniseries based on the wrongful convictions of Richardson. He was 14. Yusuf Salam, he was 15. Raymond Santana, he was 14. And Corey Wise, he was 16. In 1989, they were arrested as teenagers and terrorized by police before being wrongfully in New York City Central Park. The media and the general public, and this is from the Innocence Project. The Innocence Project is an organization that focuses on reversing wrongful convictions. They've been successful throughout the years, but the process to reverse a wrongful conviction takes years. So, you know, they've done a good job, but it's like compared to how many people get wrongfully convicted, it's only a small margin, but at the very least, they're doing the work. The media and general public, both in New York City and beyond, instantly believe these 5 Black and Latino youth were guilty of the crime without giving them a fair chance of proving their innocence. Following a media frenzy in which they were described as a gang wilding, assaulting people in the park, they were considered exclusion and a lack of other evidence connecting them to the scene of the crime. So it was bring back the death penalty to kill them, to do away with them as murderers and rapists and stuff like that. You know, and that obviously ended up being put in the docu-series because Donald Trump is currently the president. So, you know, the irony of how years later, you know, decades later, this obviously ends up surfacing in regards to Donald Trump specifically. The Central Park 5 backlash. So basically, this is the letter right here. This afternoon, employment as a part-time lecturer. In doing so, she conveniently it has given me to interact with many fine students who are really generated by the Netflix portrayal of the STEM teaching application. So that was Elizabeth, prosecutor Elizabeth, right? big. You know what I'm saying? Like Columbia is in schools like usually it's in you got Columbia. Those are like the top three. You got other Ivy Leagues, but like the top. You know, of course, you is a major like it's a significantly get more attention than others. Organization circulated a petition at the university. The first team who had been the first team got backlash because as well of their most basic rights and freedoms and robbed of their child boarded and even employed by an institution located. Some of these scenes they were from Harlem, you know, side of Harlem, like right off picking up these kids from this specific neighborhood in that same exact territory. It's kind of what we talk at the projects and stuff like that. That happens in the midst of all of this too. That it's like close. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're doing that we injure you, that we take pride in it as well. A institution located right in Harlem's backyard, which received nearly 10,000 signatures. Of their accolade backlash this month for her role in overseeing the prosecutions of the May 31st release of the Netflix shows, but she had to resign from several boards. Committee for like an organization or not. That's basically they're like the overseers of. So wish the case hadn't been settled. 1989. So I'm not gonna play this video because basically it's multiple videos of her talking about that night. This is the jogger right here, like in modern day. So see, New York City settled with the Central Park Five in 2014 for 41 million. That's never going to bring back the time that they lost, but that's a lot more money than a lot of people actually receive for settlements. Like Khalid Browder's family only got over $3 million for everything that happened. You know, he ended up committing suicide. So it's like the Central Park Five, at the very least, had more money come in, which just $1 million. That's a lot of money. So, like I said, you can never make up the time that was lost. You can never undo the memories and the trauma and all that stuff. But at the very least, like and in my opinion, they should have gotten awarded even more money just because of all the stuff that they had to go through. But at the very least, it's more than what a lot of people receive for 2004. Mayor Bill de Blasio in New York City finally settled with their lives in jail and prison wrongly. De Blasio has an obligation to do something fair for them for the whole. I'm trying to see if there's a statement from the jogger. So Central Park in April. At Solomon Brothers in New York City. So basically, this remains a decision that Trisha, mainly the jogger, in that Harvard, the police and prosecutors involved in the case agreed. In 2020 in January, I wish that it had gone to court because there's a lot of report the work of law enforcement and prosecute the jogger that had gotten, and she left Central Park in April 1989. She was working in New York City. It was a sense of accomplishment, and she was doing her thing. Basically, she was working, doing finances. In 80, in the night of April 19th, 1989, East Side, which of course, if you live on the east side, you probably doing well financially. Moments after it was a routine she followed, probably it was a release to be out there in nature to see the beauty of the park, as well as the skyscrapers and the lights of New York City, and the sense that wow, this is my city, sense of vitality. But at the same time, she was responding to calls about 30 to 40 teens who were harassing people in their bikes and robbed of their watches. I mean, it was kind of a crazy series of incidences. Ken Arletta. So alluding to is apparently there's more evidence that came out. You want to dive deeper into this? I was on the actual video itself, the part one of that video. Ultimately, the jogger from the Central Park 5 case believes that the case should have never been settled. It should have continued. Came home from what it said. She left work. Nobody should have to feel like they can't do whatever they want at any moment. But a lot of us were also taught, to not do certain things at certain times because we already understand that can open us up for certain risks and certain dangers. Again, just because you're jogging at after 8 p.m. or whatever, does it mean that you're supposed to get raped? Of course not. But because we know that the possibility of somebody doing something like this is out there, that's why a lot of times our parents they tell us, you're not allowed to do this after a certain time, and stuff like that. So it's Matias Reyes, Talk 5 series when they see, obviously, this is the documentary image of what Matias Reyes looks like. Played by 1971, before Reyes committed his first known attempt with Jackie Herbach at a church. Just the next known attack occurred on 1989. Reyes beat and began fleeing the scene after being spotted by a passerby. The features on his chin when the detective assigned to the description of Matias Reyes. The woman left New York to the case transferred to a different unit. Reyes was never brought in. They could have easily prevented a second rape in their police justice no more because maybe she felt she was in the ways. You also had the transfer to a different unit, in which at that point, that's police dropped the ball. Obviously, just 2 days later, he ended up pressure on the police because it's like now that kid, it made Donald Trump post an ad and tracking down Matias Reyes. Well as the rape and assault of Mele, hit the 5 women by forcing his way into their apartment, murdered by Reyes, with him stabbing the mother of 3 9 times in the chest and hiding in the next room. Was finally caught in August, last name withheld for privacy reasons, as and alert other residents who set upon him and kept him. He confessed to a number of rapes and the murder. 2002, Reyes confirmed and that he had acted alone at the time, living in a van on the street. So this is basically had been living out. He had been living of the Central Park 5 joggers case that happened. So then after the specific, we can see that some of the situations that he got in police officer, and like I said, basically the to the story originally said, like they kind of just stand out of it. And the public team after outcry, sure, as the fallout continues for the former Central 1989, already resigned from at least 2 hashtag cancel Linda. Effect. And right here we see District Attorney Robert Morgenthau and 6 appear at a news conference in 1988. Opened it up to the case situation, but audio was also not the.
It's the final before we have to. Hello. The final outline feedback on that before we have to.
Yes. Type that out. We'll call tomorrow again in the morning. Audio and everything is a lot to just like for us to spec up.
Yeah.
We're working on some of the outline, all of them in today throughout the day, but I'll definitely be sure to end today. So I got you. And if you respond to the WhatsApp group or
Yeah.
so listen, going into week 5, let's get that going. Just feel free to reach out.
Right.
Okay.
You're
Yeah, right now because everything's in slow mo. Uno, dos, tres. Yeah. Have a great one. I'm gonna catch y'all on Monday.
Well,